Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Turbo 360 tutorial series. In this series, I'm going to show you how to make a newsfeed application using React, wherein the user will be able to see his news feeds from his favorite websites aggregated all into one UI. So basically, if you're anything like me, you just visit a handful of websites on a given day, just maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 websites, and that's it. For me, that's like Hacker News, Reddit, ESPN, stuff like that. And I always thought it would be more convenient to have all those feeds aggregated into one UI. So we want to build that in this tutorial using React and Redux, React and Redux. So that's it. Let's get started. So first thing you want to do is make sure you have the right up-to-date tools and whatnot. So I'm using Node version 6, 6.10 specifically. So do the same thing that I just did right here, node-v, and make sure you have at least version 6. If you have version 4 or lower, things aren't going to work right. So make sure you have that. If you don't have version 6, you go to npmjs.org and that's not right. Sorry, nodejs.org, and make sure you download the LTS version right here. Okay. Number 2 is make sure you have gulp installed globally. Like that. Go ahead and just install that, except put in the right password. And that should take care of that. And then once that's done, make sure you have the Turbo CLI also installed globally. Like that. And if you already have Turbo, I am currently using this version. Make sure you have the same version. All right. So now let's cd to our desktop, and let's create a new Turbo app called Newsfeed, and we're specifying the React flag right here, which will give us a React Redux scaffold right out of the box. So it'll set up the React and the Redux and all the the stores, the actions, the reducers, things like that. So let's go ahead and set that up. Yeah, it gives you some instructions right here, but you can just follow along with me for now. Cd into the newsfeed folder and then run the npm install to install the packages and dependencies. So this will take about a minute or two. While it's going, open up the project. Let's open it up in Sublime. So I can take you through the directory structure while this installs. So we have our assets directory, which is typical. It's just CSS, JavaScript, images, and all that good stuff. We also have our src directory, which is going to be where our work is primarily done. So if we expand that, you will see the Redux environment: actions, constants, reducers, stores, and then components, which are just standard React components. And then the React entry point right here is going to be the index.js. And this entry point, you may notice that there's a provider, so we already have Redux configured in here. So it's all set up. And the entry point is mounted onto the index.html. So it's all loaded onto here. Bear in mind the imports are being referenced from the dist directory, so you have to build the project before to actually see the render properly take place. So it's not from the assets directory. Of course, you can change that, but that's not really best practice. You should follow the standards set in place here. So once this is done, which it almost is, we will be able to run the dev server and see the project that's initially scaffolded out of the box. If you look at the index.js, well, actually it's done, so let's run the dev server. So turbo dev server, and it runs on localhost 3000. So navigate to that, and you will see the initial scaffold contents. So if you look at the index.js, you'll see that the provider is only wrapped around the intro component, and the intro component is from the components presentation directory. So components, presentation, and this is the intro component. So we're not going to actually use this because it's just intro. It's just intro content. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to install a theme. So Turbo gives you a couple themes out of the box that you can just install. So to see what they are, you do Turbo themes. And here are the theme options. Now these come from html5up.net, html5up.net, and here you can actually see the theme, but you can also just install it to see what it looks like. So if I want to install Hyperspace, I do Turbo theme Hyperspace. Excuse me, and then I let that run, and I'm currently installing this theme right here from html5up.net. So when this is done, I can rerun the server, the dev server, and see if it installed. So here's localhost 3000, I reload, and now I've got Hyperspace. So that worked. I'm going to install a different theme though. I'm going to turn off the server. I'm going to install this theme right here, editorial. The reason being, I think the editorial theme is a little bit more conducive to what we want to make, which is a newsfeed application. So here's the theme I'm installing right now, editorial. And when that's done, we can do the same thing. We can run the dev server. And make sure that it installed, which it did. Great. So now we're good to go. So now we have the editorial theme installed. If we go back to our index.js, you'll see a different index.js. You'll see that it's simply rendering the elements component, which is from the theme directory. So if we open up the theme directory, you'll see the elements component, and this is what's currently being rendered right here. So bear in mind this is all in React, which is nice. The theme is converted into React for us, so we can just go ahead and start working on it directly. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a slight adjustment and just use this shorthand variable notation. I just find this to be easier to read. It's more of a personal preference thing. It's not like best practice or anything like that. The other way was fine, but I just like this more. However, one thing I'm definitely going to do is import the provider and get the Redux environment back in place. So we want to make sure that that's not lost. So let's get the provider in place. The provider requires a store, and the store is from the stores directory. And then if we open up the stored file, you'll see that there's a configure function. So we want to run that function right here. Configure with no initial state. And then we go back to our terminal, turn off the server. I'm going to open a new tab and run webpack with the watch flag so that webpack is watching the file so we don't have to constantly rebuild. However, what did I forget here? Okay, so I forgot the provider to close it like that. And then we can run the webpack again. And there we go. And then go back here and run the dev server. Okay, it's not working. What do we forget? Configure is not defined. So it's actually, sorry about that, another careless mistake. And then there we go. Okay, so now we're back in business. So all I've done here is I've re-implemented the Redux sort of setup, so we don't have to remember to do it later. Now this elements component is just a, it's not meant to be used in the actual project, it's just a sort of a demo component, right? So we want to turn off our server and set up our own our own project components. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new source level directory. So let's go into the source and create a new directory called pages. And then let's cd into that. And let's create the index file. And then let's create a home page. And let's start setting those up. So in here, in the index, let's import the home. And then let's export it, because this is very easy to forget. Now it's done. Let's go in here and let's set up React. Now I'm doing this from scratch because I want you to develop the habit of doing all this from scratch as well. Normally I would just copy and paste, but that wouldn't really make for a very good tutorial, right? So here I'm just putting some basic React component in from scratch. This is the home page, and then let's export that. Now let's render this guy from the index rather than the elements. So we grab the home from the pages directory, and then we render that guy instead. Webpack is still running, so all we got to do is go back to the root directory and run the dev server. And then reload, and then this is the home page. So that worked. So now we have our home page component being rendered instead of the elements. So now let's go to the elements component from the theme. Let's grab the components being used from the theme. So I just copied these 5 lines. Let's go back to the home component and import those. Now keep in mind this directory structure is off. It should be like that now. So that the imports are accurate, and then let's highlight this entire thing, and let's copy and paste that into the home component. So just get rid of that and then copy and paste what we grabbed from the elements. The indents are all messed up. Now we'll take care of that later. And then, let's see. Home. Well, welcome to news feed. Okay, and then let's check back in on Webpack, and so far so good. So if we reload that, welcome to newsfeed. So now we're back in business with the actual theme. Everything is back in place. Check the console, make sure there are no errors. Everything looks good. So I think the way we're gonna work with this is that on the left side are going to be the individual feeds that we register on our app. So this is going to be like Hacker News, Reddit Programming, ESPN.com, whatever I pick to register. And then whenever I click on one, it'll show the most recent feeds from those that content. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, nothing too complicated. So let's see here. I'll just fix this indent real quick. Well, it didn't exactly fix it, but we're not going to use that mostly anyway, so. Okay, this component right here is the sidebar component. So we're going to want to keep that. Let's get rid of this image right here. Welcome to newsfeed. So that's going to be this guy right here. Let's get rid of that. Alright, let's get rid of all of these. Basically, let's only leave this top section behind, and that's it. So this section should go, as should this section right here. Okay, and that gives us a good base of content to work out of. A good foundation, excuse me. Let's see here. So let's clean up our home page component to remove the imports that we're not using. So we're using the sidebar and the header, but I don't think we're using the footer. Yeah, we're not, so let's get rid of that. I don't think we're using feature, so let's get rid of that. And I don't think we're using post. Right. So let's get rid of that. Okay, good. And nothing broke. I don't know what this header does though. Let's see what happens if we get rid of it. Yeah, we might want to do away with that too, honestly. I don't really see much use for it. Yeah, let's get rid of that. And let's not have that extra line break in here. There's no real need for that. And I'm going to put a horizontal line right there. Okay. Cool. Now, what we really want to do is not use the actual theme components directly. So let's open up our components directory, and we have a containers directory as well as a, well, no, that's it. So let's go inside the components directory, cd components. Let's make a presentation directory. Make sure I spelled that right. cd into that. Create an index. And then let's create a, I don't know if we can create the same name. In fact, well, let's just try it anyway, see what happens. So let's import sidebar from, you know what, I'm pretty sure Webpack is going to complain about this. And then inside the sidebar, let's set up React component from React class sidebar extends component under term. Okay, so let's see what happens when we build this. So far so good, but I think if we import this from the components. So components presentation. Let's see what happens. All right, now if this worked, then this sidebar should go away, and then you should only see that. So actually it worked. Okay, so we're good. So now let's go ahead and grab the sidebar from here. And let's see, we want to keep the search and the nav. Okay, for now let's import all of it. So let's go back to the sidebar, our sidebar. And then we want to do theme. And keep in mind we got to go up 2 levels, right? Because we have presentation, then components, and then the main level. So that's why we're going up 2. And then let's grab the sidebar from the theme. Let's grab all of it. And let's paste it into our sidebar. And that should bring us back to the original sidebar, which it does. Now what we want to do is get rid of a lot of this. We want to get rid of this stuff down here, as well as the get in touch. And that's it for now. So get in touch goes away, as well as this stuff over here. Okay, better. All right, let's clean up the indents because this is pretty sloppy. So pretty nitpicky about this, so I guess you can just fast forward past this if you want, but it's a good habit to maintain. So all right, now let's see. I'm going to get rid of the footer for now just because it's less stuff to worry about. So let's get rid of that too. And then the footer should go. Now what I'm going to do about the nav, I'm going to see what the nav looks like from the elements standpoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually copy and paste this content directly. Because if you can see, this is all just regular HTML. There's nothing unique here from a component standpoint. So I want to get rid of the nav like that, and then I'm just going to dump it in like that from the theme. And I'm going to get rid of all the list items that have a children in it. So if you look at this, you see where it says submenu? I'm going to get rid of all those. And I want to change this to feeds, news feeds. And one last thing I'm going to do, oh by the way, this mini post we don't need anymore. I'm going to grab the search from the original theme as well. And rather than use the theme component, I'm going to use the raw HTML from the theme. So if you can't tell what I'm doing, what I'm doing is I'm removing all dependencies to the actual theme components and basically creating my own custom components from the theme so that we can manipulate them any which way we want to without worrying about sort of breaking the theme. So the idea being all of these components right here, these are more reference points. We don't want to actually change any of these. We want to use these as reference and sort of import these into our own project like I'm doing here, and so we can make our own changes confidently without worrying about losing any of the original work. So we can always go back and double check if we need to. So now we have the theme basically reformatted for our purpose, and these will eventually be, well, let's just go ahead and make a few actual. So let's say Hacker News, New York. I read the New York Daily News a lot for sports. All right, sounds good. And okay, that's it for now. Instead of news feeds, I'm going to change that to my feeds. All right, looks good. So far so good. We've set up our project, visually speaking. We set up the theme. We set up the, well, we didn't really set up everything from scratch. We scaffolded the React Redux components. We have a general sense of how things are going to look. So this will be the actual news feeds. When we click on that, we'll see the actual content show up here. And for now, that'll be it for this video. In the next video, we'll start adding some news feeds and having them render the actual content over here. So stay tuned for that. Thanks.